You know that feeling when you step outside and immediately regret not wearing boots. Or when you park your car and you step out and you realize you're completely surrounded by a giant puddle. Yes, that is the end of winter in all of its glory. Want to come along on this journey of disgust with me? Keep watching. So here in Connecticut, and generally any state that really has a winter, by the end of the season, it's like the world's been through a giant blender. Gray slush, dirty snowbanks, and the never-ending battle with puddles. Let's talk about why the end of the winter is really the season of chaos. Let's be honest. The end of winter is often a time when the season's most unpleasant aspects are at their peak. The transition to spring can bring a host of discomforts and frustrations. So let's kind of go through the breakdown of the top reasons why the end of winter feels so yucky. For many of you who are watching this video that aren't from the northern parts of the United States where we get the snow, you might not understand this. But if you ever come to visit during this time, you'll really be in for a treat. Some of the great things about this time of year are messy slush and ice. As the snow begins to melt, it forms a mix of slush. It's a soggy, slushy blend of snow and ice and road salt. And this wet gray substance can be tracked everywhere. Roads and sidewalks really can become quite treacherous with these half-frozen puddles and slippery patches of ice kind of all over the place. The process of melting snow isn't clean or neat. It's a messy, muddy, and inconvenient time when you're constantly trying to avoid getting your feet wet and dirty when you go outside. Plus, the slush often accumulates in piles along the curbs. You know what I'm talking about. It's just like a random pile that's been left there because it was 8 feet tall at one point and now it's just shrinking down. And as it shrinks and slowly dissolves, it turns into a gross, dirty slurry of grime. And forget about trying to keep your car clean because your car gets encrusted in all of this stuff. Whether it's salt from the road or splashing from puddles, your car is constantly dirty. And you feel like, I'm gonna go get my car washed today. And then immediately you drive out of the car wash and it's dirty again. Speaking of the dirty snow and grime everywhere, after weeks of snow accumulation, the snow on the streets, sidewalks, and in parking lots isn't pure white anymore. It's a gross, brownish, blackish color stained with dirt and road salt and pollution. And sometimes there might be some little bit of yellow snow in there as well. It's a grimy, brownish, stained, dirty, road salt slurry of disgustingness. What was once a beautiful, sparkling layer of snow becomes an eyesore. It's a constant reminder of how long the winter has lasted and how long it's been since the clean, fresh snow fell. And as I stated earlier, any snowbanks that are left over from storms often begin to melt slowly, leaving behind muddy, grimy puddles, debris, and all sorts of disgusting things. You'll see like trash that people threw when they were littering that was sitting in the snow and then it melts down and there's just like this disintegrated like carton that had been in there laying on the road. The other great thing about end of season is the damaged roads and potholes. The freeze-thaw cycle that comes with late winter wreaks havoc on the roads. As the ground freezes and thaws, cracks form in the asphalt. And that's when potholes begin to appear. Not only does this make driving an unpleasant experience, but navigating these potholes also puts a potential strain on your car. If you run over one, it could lead to costly repairs. I've done that before, not realizing it, and then it's too late and you go over this gigantic pothole and I'm just lucky if my tire doesn't pop. It's scary. You feel like the whole car just goes out from underneath you. And the puddles. The puddles are formed from the melting snow and they're mixed with the salt and the dirt again and the debris. And then that gets splashed everywhere. And not only is it on your car, but if you're walking on a sidewalk or through a crosswalk, you can get it splashed on you. The end of season also brings cold and damp, unpredictable weather. While technically spring is approaching in a couple of weeks, the weather can remain stubbornly cold and damp. You may experience days of gloomy and overcast skies, with temperatures fluctuating unpredictably. And the lack of sunlight can contribute to seasonal affective disorder, or just general feelings of gloominess. I know I've felt that way. When we have a long stretch at the end of the season where it's just gray for days and days and days, it definitely affects my mood. One day it'll be warm and sunny, like today. It's the end of February and it's beautiful out. But then the next day, winter's back. No joke. It's 50 degrees out today, and on Sunday it's going to be a high of 30. Another unintended consequence of this temperature fluctuation is that you never know what to wear. You might decide not to layer up because it's a warm day out, but then you're freezing because the temperatures plummet at night. Another thing you'll notice this time of the year is that there's always a dampness in the air. It makes it feel colder than it actually is. And there's that lingering wind chill that makes everything feel a little uncomfortable. So it's a constant reminder that the season is dragging on. And another gross aspect of this time of year is the meltwater mess that accumulates. As the snow melts, the excess water has to go somewhere. That often leads to flooding or puddles forming in unexpected places. For example, storm drains may be clogged with debris, leaving melted snow water to collect in the streets, the yards, and the driveways. And then when all of this meltwater runs off into the streets, it mixes with the dirt and the oil and the salt again, making it seem like the whole world is covered in muck. And the transition from winter to spring often leaves behind slippery conditions. As I was saying before, it may be 50 degrees during the day and then dip into the 20s overnight, refreezing everything that had melted the day before. And believe me, I have been known to take a few spills here and there. You might step out onto your front walkway or run out to your mailbox, and one misstep on that black ice and forget it. Areas that aren't properly salted or plowed can become incredibly slick with ice. And generally, there is a very slow start to spring, especially here in Connecticut. While you may be excited for the end of winter, the transition to spring can feel agonizingly slow. Despite the longer daylight hours that we'll be getting in a couple weeks and the few glimpses of sun, it can still be weeks and weeks before the temperatures are consistently warm. Believe me, spring does not appear overnight here. A long, drawn-out transition. This wait for the season to officially shift can feel frustrating, especially after months and months of cold. And when it feels like spring should have arrived by now, this in-between weather almost makes it worse because it's at the tail end and it's just lingering. And even though technically March 21st-ish is the first day of spring, here in Connecticut, we are firmly planted in the winter category still in March. Every year I say to myself in April, oh, it's finally spring. And then reality hits because it's far from spring. Temperatures linger in the 40s in April, and it's really rainy usually. And just a friendly reminder, I had a Memorial Day picnic. Yes, Memorial Day. So this is the end of May, and it was 34 degrees out one year and raining. So there you have it. And another thing you don't think about is that gross smell that comes out at the end of the season. With all the melted snow, the earthy smells of decay begin to rise. There's the wetness of damp leaves, the scent of mud, and the musty odor that comes from melting ice, mixing with bacteria and things. I mean, let's be honest. When snow melts, there's all sorts of debris in there, like dead leaves, trash, even remnants of food. And all of this stuff comes melting down and making a beautiful fragrance for the early spring. So at the end of the day, ultimately, the end of winter is a messy and uncomfortable transition for everyone. While we're eager for the freshness of spring, we're often stuck in this gross limbo where the worst of both seasons collide. Unpredictable weather, the dirty streets, the slow-moving changes, the residual piles of snow and meltwater. With all of this stuff combined together, it really just makes us appreciate spring that much more when it finally arrives. Comment below on what your least favorite part of the end of winter is. And please, if you're from a warm southern state, comment below, because I know you guys actually had some unprecedented snow this year, so you may have had to deal with some of this mess as well. Let me know how it went. I'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, check out this video and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.